I just gotten home from my shift at the hospital, exhausted and dreaming of a hot shower in my comfortable bed, when I found three large men in expensive suits standing outside my apartment door. They were holding moving boxes and looking at their phones like they were confirming an address. "Excuse me," I said, keys in hand, trying to figure out why these intimidating strangers were blocking my door. "Can I help you?" The tallest one, built like a tank with a scar across his cheek, looked at me with cool assessment. "You live here? Apartment 4B? Yes, and you're blocking my door. So if you could move, we're moving someone in. Tenant has a lease starting today." He pulled out his phone, showed me a document that did indeed show apartment 4B, lease beginning today's date. "That's impossible. I have a lease. This is my apartment. There must be a mistake." "No mistake. We verified the address 3 times. He gestured to the door. "You're going to need to let us in so we can start moving boxes. I'm not letting strange men into my apartment based on a document on a phone. I need to call my landlord and figure out what's happening." Before I could pull out my phone, another man appeared at the top of the stairs. Unlike the others, he wasn't carrying boxes. He was just there, and impossible to ignore. He was probably early 30s, tall and powerfully built, with dark hair and sharp features that were striking in an almost unsettling way. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent, and he moved with the kind of confidence that suggested he was used to getting exactly what he wanted. "Problem?" he asked, his voice deep and carrying a slight accent I couldn't place. "This woman says she lives here," Scarface explained. "Claims there's been a mistake." The man in the expensive suit turned his attention to me, dark eyes assessing. "You're Mia Russo." "Mia Torres." "Not Russo, and yes, I live here. Have lived here for 2 years. So whoever you are, you have the wrong apartment. I'm Nico Valentini. And I have a lease for apartment 4B, signed by the building's owner, starting today. If you also have a lease, then someone made an error. But that's not my problem, it's yours and the landlord's to sort out. You can't just move into an occupied apartment because you have a piece of paper." "Actually, legally I can. The lease is valid. You'll need to take up the double booking with your landlord." He nodded to his men. "Start moving boxes in. We're on a schedule." "No. You're not moving anything into my apartment." I positioned myself in front of the door, which was admittedly stupid given that these men could easily move me aside. But I was exhausted, angry, and not thinking clearly. Nico studied me for a long moment, then sighed. "Marco, call the landlord. Get them on speakerphone. We'll sort this out now rather than waste time arguing." While one of his men made the call, I took the opportunity to really look at Nico Valentini. He was attractive in a dangerous way. The kind of man who probably had women falling at his feet, but also probably had a dozen reasons you should run in the opposite direction. The expensive suit, the armed guards, the casual assumption that he could just move into an occupied apartment. Everything screamed money and power and trouble. Double quotes Mr. Chen. "It's Marco, calling on behalf of Mr. Valentini regarding apartment 4B, the scarred man said into his phone. "There's a tenant here claiming the apartment is hers." "Yes, I'll put you on speaker." My landlord's voice came through, tinny but clear. "Mia? Is that you?" "Mr. Chen, what's going on? Why are there men trying to move into my apartment?"
Mia, I tried to call you earlier, but it went to voicemail."
"There's been a situation. The building has been sold. New owner wanted to make some changes, including restructuring some of the leases. Your apartment was one that got reassigned." "Reassigned? What does that mean?" "You can't just kick me out." "I'm not kicking you out. Your lease is still valid. But the apartment number has changed. You're now in 4C instead of 4 bytes, 4C. That's the studio apartment. Mr. Chen, I have a 1-bedroom. All my furniture, my life, everything is set up for a 1-bedroom. You can't just move me to a studio." The new lease terms include a rent reduction to compensate for the smaller space. You'll be paying $400 less per month. I don't want to pay less for a smaller apartment. I want to keep my apartment that I've been living in for 2 years.
I'm sorry, Mia. The building sale and new lease terms were final as of last week.
I sent you an email about it. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my emails. There it was, buried in my spam folder, sent a week ago. An email explaining the building sale, new management, lease restructuring. I'd never seen it because I'd been working 60-hour weeks and hadn't checked my spam in days. This isn't fair. I never agreed to this. Your original lease had a clause about changes due to building ownership transfer. I know this is inconvenient, but legally, everything is in order. Mr. Valentini's lease for 4B is valid. Your lease for 4C is valid. I've already had maintenance move your things to the new apartment. You moved my stuff without my permission? I tried to call you 3 times this morning. Like I said, it went to voicemail. Mr. Chen sounded tired and defensive. Look, I'm sorry this is happening. But my hands are tied. New ownership, new rules. You can accept the new apartment with reduced rent, or you can break your lease and find somewhere else. Those are your options. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw my phone at the wall. Instead, I just closed my eyes and tried to breathe. Fine. I'll take 4C. But Mr. Chen, this is absolutely unacceptable. We're going to have a serious conversation about tenant rights and proper notice. I understand you're upset. We can discuss this later. For now, your new keys are on the kitchen counter in 4C. He hung up. I turned to Nico Valentini, who'd been watching this entire exchange with an expression that was either amusement or pity. I couldn't tell which. Congratulations. You got my apartment. I hope you're happy. I didn't get your apartment. I signed a lease for an available unit. If your landlord mishandled the situation, that's between you and him. I'm just moving into the apartment I legally rented. With armed guards and moving teams like you're some kind of... I stopped, really looking at the men surrounding him. Professional, alert, constantly scanning the surroundings. Who are you? What kind of person needs security like this just to move into an apartment? Someone who values safety and privacy. Now, if you'll excuse me, we have moving to do. I'm sure you want to check out your new apartment and make sure your belongings are intact. He was dismissing me. Like I was an inconvenience he'd already dealt with and could now ignore. The arrogance made my anger flare even hotter. 4C is a studio. It's half the size of this apartment. If my things don't fit, if anything is damaged because your lease forced me into a smaller space, then you'll take it up with the landlord. Who's responsible for the move? Not with me. I'm simply the new tenant of 4B. He nodded to his men. Let's get started. I want to be settled by tonight. They moved past me like I wasn't even there, carrying boxes into what used to be my apartment. I stood in the hallway, feeling violated and helpless, watching strangers invade my space. The apartment next door 4T had its door propped open. I walked in to find my furniture crammed into a space that was clearly too small. My bed took up most of the main room. My couch was pushed against one wall, my desk against another, barely leaving walking space. Boxes were stacked everywhere. This was a disaster. An absolute disaster. I spent the next 3 hours trying to organize the chaos. The studio apartment was maybe 400 square feet, a single room with a tiny kitchenette and a bathroom that was barely functional. My furniture from the one bedroom didn't fit. I'd have to get rid of half of it, or pay for storage I couldn't afford. Around 8 p.m. Exhausted and close to tears, I decided I needed air. I stepped into the hallway just as Nico Valentini was leaving what used to be my apartment. He'd changed from the suit into dark jeans and a fitted t-shirt that showed off a muscular build, and somehow looked even more intimidating in casual clothes. Settling in okay? He asked, like we were friendly neighbors rather than people who just had a confrontation over living space. No, my furniture doesn't fit. My kitchen stuff is still in boxes because there's no room for it. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to sleep on my couch because there's no way to access my bed with everything crammed in there. That's unfortunate. Sounds like you need a bigger apartment. I had a bigger apartment. Until you took it. I didn't take anything. I rented an available unit. You're angry at the wrong person, Mia Torres. The way he said my name made something flutter in my chest, which was absolutely inappropriate given the circumstances. I blamed exhaustion. Whatever. I'm going to get food. Try not to make too much noise moving in. Some of us have to work early shifts and need sleep. What kind of work? I'm a nurse. At Metropolitan Hospital. I work 12-hour shifts starting at 6 a.m. So, noise after 10 p.m. would be really inconvenient. Noted, I'll keep it down. He sounded sincere, which threw me off. I'd expected him to be dismissive or not care. But he was actually acknowledging my request. Thank you, I said grudgingly. And just so you know, if you're planning parties or having lots of people over, these walls are thin. I'll hear everything. Not a party person. You won't have noise issues from me. He paused at the top of the stairs. For what it's worth, I am sorry about the apartment situation. I know it's not ideal for you. If there's anything I can do to make the transition easier, let me know. Then he was gone. Heading downstairs before I could respond. Over the next week, I adjusted to my new living situation, which is to say, I hated every minute of it but had no choice. The studio apartment was cramped and uncomfortable. I'd sold half my furniture at a loss just to make space. And every time I walked past apartment 4B, my former apartment, I felt a surge of resentment toward Nico Valentini, though to be fair, he'd been a surprisingly considerate neighbor. No noise after 10 p.m. No parties. No disruptions. In fact, I barely saw him. He seemed to come and go at odd hours, sometimes not home for days at a time. Maybe he's a drug dealer, my coworker Sarah suggested during our lunch break. I told her about the apartment situation, though I'd left out the part about Nico being disturbingly attractive. Rich guy security guards, irregular hours that screams illegal activity, or he's just a businessman who travels a lot. With armed guards. Girl, that's not normal businessman behavior. You should be careful. Maybe get a better lock on your door. She had a point. There was definitely something unusual about Nico Valentini. But I had bigger problems than figuring out my mysterious neighbor's profession. Like the fact that my student loans were due, my car needed repairs I couldn't afford. And I'd just gotten a notice that my health insurance premiums were going up. 2 weeks after Nico moved in. I came home at 11 p.m. after a brutally long shift to find my key wouldn't work in the lock. I tried 3 times before accepting that something was wrong. Exhausted and on the verge of tears. I knocked on 4B after a minute, Nico answered. Looking like he'd been working dress shirt partially unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up. Hair slightly messed up in a way that should have looked disheveled but instead looked unfairly attractive. Mia, everything okay? My key won't work. I think the lock is broken or something. Do you have Mr. Chen's emergency number? I can't find it in my phone. It's almost midnight. Calling now probably won't get you anywhere. Maintenance won't come until morning. He stepped back from his door. You're welcome to wait in here until you figure something out. I was working anyway, so I'm awake. I should have said no. Should have gone back downstairs and called Mr. Chen anyway, or found a hotel. Or literally anything other than accepting help from the man who'd taken my apartment. But I was exhausted, my feet hurt, and the thought of dealing with this crisis right now was overwhelming. Thank you. I appreciate it. The apartment, my former apartment, looked completely different. He'd furnished it with expensive, minimalist furniture. Large windows I'd never properly appreciated now showcased a stunning view of the city at night. Everything was clean, organized, clearly decorated by someone with both money and taste. You've done a lot with the place, I said, trying not to feel bitter about how much better it looked than when I'd lived here. I like having a comfortable home base when I'm in the city. Coffee? You look like you could use it. Please. It's been a horrible shift. 3 traumas, 2 codes, and a patient's family member who threatened to sue me personally because we couldn't save their father who came in already. Deceased. Nico made coffee in an expensive espresso machine that definitely hadn't been in this apartment when I lived here. Sounds rough. How long have you been a nurse? 4 years. Sometimes it feels like 4 decades.
I accepted the coffee gratefully. What do you do?
For work, I mean. Sarah thinks you're a drug dealer because of the security and irregular hours.
He smiled slightly, something that transformed his usually serious face. Not a drug dealer. I run operations for my family's business. Import-export, primarily.
Based in Italy, but with significant work in New York.
That's vague enough to be suspicious. It's vague because the details are boring.
Shipping manifests, customs paperwork, supply chain logistics. Not exactly cocktail party conversation.
But interesting enough to need armed security?
My family is wealthy and well known in certain circles.
Security is a precaution, not a necessity. But after a kidnapping attempt on my cousin 3 years ago, we don't take chances.
That sounded plausible. Rich families did have security for legitimate reasons. Maybe Sarah was wrong and Nico was just a businessman with reasonable precautions. We talked for the next hour, about work, about the city, about the building and its quirks. He was surprisingly easy to talk to, with a dry sense of humor that made me laugh despite my exhaustion.
And when I checked my phone and realized it was past 1 a.m., I was surprised by how quickly the time had passed. I should try my door again. Maybe the lock was just stuck.
Or I could call a locksmith now.
Have them come out first thing in the morning, get you a working lock by 8 a.m. That would be expensive.
Emergency locksmith calls are ridiculous.
Consider it a neighborly favor.
Compensation for taking your apartment, if you want to think of it that way.
You didn't take my apartment. You rented an available unit.
I'm angry at the wrong person. I repeated his words from our first meeting. But if you're offering to pay for a locksmith, I won't say no. It's been a really bad week. He made a call in Italian, speaking rapidly to whoever was on the other end.
After hanging up, he turned back to me. Locksmith will be here at 7 a.m. In the meantime, you can stay in the guest room if you want to sleep.
Or take the couch if you prefer to be in the common area.
Your choice. Nico, I can't. That's too much. It's a guest room that's sitting empty. You're exhausted from a 12-hour shift and dealing with a law crisis.
Just accept the help, Mia. Not everything has to be a fight.
He was right.
I was too tired to fight or to figure out alternatives.
Okay. Thank you. I'll take the couch though.
The guest room feels like too much.
Suit yourself.
Blankets and pillows are in the hall closet.
Help yourself to anything in the kitchen if you get hungry. He started toward what I assumed was his bedroom, then paused.
And Mia? I really am sorry about the apartment situation.
I know I was just renting an available unit doesn't make it less frustrating for you.
But for what it's worth, you're handling it better than most people would.
After he disappeared into his room, I set up the couch with blankets and tried to process the evening. I'd started the day resenting Nico Valentini as the person who'd stolen my apartment.
I was ending it as a guest in his home, accepting his help with my lock crisis. And finding him unexpectedly. Life was weird. The locksmith showed up promptly at 7 a.m. Fixed my lock in 15 minutes, and refused payment when I offered. Apparently Nico had already taken care of it. I thanked him profusely, gathered my things from his apartment, and headed to work feeling oddly conflicted about my neighbor.
So let me get this straight, Sarah said when I explained what had happened. The hot mystery neighbor who stole your apartment paid for your emergency locksmith,
let you sleep on his couch, made you coffee, and was generally nice?
Girl, you need to lock that down. I'm not locking down anything. He's my neighbor, who I barely know, who might still be involved in something shady based on all the security.
Or he's just a rich businessman who's also hot and helpful.
Either way, you should at least be friendly.
Maybe he'll compensate for stealing your apartment by taking you to dinner.
He didn't steal, you know what? Never mind.
I'm not having this conversation again. I'm not having this conversation again. I'm not having this conversation again.
But Sarah's words stayed with me.
Not because I was interested in Nico. I definitely wasn't.
Absolutely was not thinking about how he looked with his shirt, partially unbuttoned and his hair messed up, but because she was right that being friendly made sense. We were neighbors. Fighting about the apartment situation was pointless.
Maybe it was time to move on. That evening I baked cookies. It was something I did when I was stressed. Baking calmed me, gave me something to control when everything else felt chaotic. And I'd had the idea that maybe bringing Nico some cookies would be a good peace offering. A way to say thank you for the locksmith and move past our rocky start. I knocked on 4B around 8 p.m. Holding a plate of still warm chocolate chip cookies, Nico answered. Once again looking like he'd been working, this time in jeans and a fitted black t-shirt that showed off muscular arms. I tried very hard not to stare at. Mia. Hi. Hi, I made cookies. As a thank you for the locksmith and for letting me crash on your couch. It's not much, but I wanted to acknowledge that you didn't have to help me, and I appreciate that you did. He took the plate, something like surprise crossing his face. You baked me cookies. I bake when I'm stressed. It helps. And I had extra, so... I was rambling, suddenly nervous under his intense gaze. Anyway, they're chocolate chip. If you don't like chocolate chip, sorry, too late now. I love chocolate chip. Thank you. This is unexpectedly nice. He stepped back from the door. Do you have a minute? I wanted to run something by you. Sure? Inside his apartment, he gestured for me to sit while he grabbed 2 glasses of wine. I have a proposition. I know you're unhappy about the apartment situation. And while I maintain that I didn't do anything wrong by renting an available unit, I understand that it's created a difficult situation for you. So I have an idea that might benefit both of us. I'm listening. The building's layout is unusual. 4B and 4C share a wall, and there's actually a connecting door that's been sealed over. According to the building plans I reviewed, it would be relatively easy to unseal that door and essentially combine the 2 apartments into one larger unit. Okay, but how does that help me? I still can't afford to rent both apartments. You wouldn't need to. I'd keep the lease on both units, pay for both. But we'd combine them, give you access to the larger space you need. You'd have your bedroom back, proper kitchen space, everything you had before. And I'd have the benefit of a more secure setup. Having someone living in the connected unit means better monitoring of who's coming and going. You want us to be roommates. In a sense. We'd have separate spaces. You'd have your areas, I'd have mine. But the shared wall would be accessible, and we'd essentially be living in a connected 2-bedroom setup instead of 2 separate units. That's a weird arrangement. Why would you even offer that? Because I feel guilty about the apartment situation, regardless of whether I'm technically at fault. Because having someone trustworthy in the connected unit makes sense from a security perspective. And because, honestly, you seem like you could use a break. The reduced rent, the cramped space, the obvious financial stress. Let me help. Call it enlightened self-interest. I should have said no. Should have recognized that this was a strange offer from a man I barely knew. But the thought of having proper space again, of not paying rent, of some financial relief during a time when every dollar counted, it was tempting. Really tempting. What's the catch? There has to be a catch. No catch. You live your life. I live mine. We're respectful of shared spaces and each other's privacy. That's it. And if one of us wants out, if this arrangement doesn't work, then we seal the door back up and go back to separate apartments. No long-term commitment required. It still felt too good to be true. But I was exhausted, financially stressed, and desperate for relief from the cramped studio. Against every bit of common sense telling me this was a bad idea, I heard myself say, okay, let's try it. The construction to open the connecting door took 3 days. Nico hired contractors who worked efficiently and professionally, sealing off the work area to minimize dust and noise. When they finished, our 2 apartments were connected by a doorway that could be locked from either side, maintaining privacy while allowing access. The result was essentially a large 2-bedroom apartment. I had my old bedroom back, plus the bathroom and half the living space. Nico had his bedroom, office, and the other half of the living area. We shared the main kitchen, his, which was much nicer than mine had been, and had an informal agreement about common spaces. This is incredible. Sarah said when she visited and saw the new setup. You went from a cramped studio to basically living in a luxury apartment. And your hot neighbor is paying for everything? Mia, this is like a romance novel setup. It's a practical arrangement between neighbors. That's all. Huh. And the way he looks at you. That's also just practical? He doesn't look at me any particular way. We barely see each other. He's gone most days. I work crazy hours. We're like ships passing in the night. But that wasn't entirely true. We did see each other. More than I'd expected. Mornings when we were both getting coffee at the same time. Evenings when I'd come home from a shift and he'd be cooking dinner, always offering to share. Late nights when we'd both be up, me studying for certification exams, him working on his laptop, and we'd end up talking for hours. We fell into an easy rhythm. He'd cook elaborate meals and leave me leftovers when he knew I was working late shifts. I'd pick up groceries for both of us when I was shopping. We'd watch movies together sometimes, sharing the couch in comfortable silence. It felt domestic in a way that should have been weird given that we'd known each other less than 2 months. But instead felt natural. You're home early, I commented one evening. Finding Nico in the kitchen at 6 p.m. instead of his usual 9 or 10 p.m. return. Light day. Thought I'd actually cook dinner at a reasonable hour. He was making something that smelled amazing, pasta with fresh tomatoes and basil. Join me? I made enough for 2. You always make enough for 2. Because you're always hungry after your shifts and I like cooking. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. He plated the pasta, poured 2 glasses of wine. And we sat at the kitchen island together. This had become our routine on nights when we were both home dinner together. Easy conversation. The kind of companionship that felt effortless. I'd started looking forward to these evenings more than I wanted to admit. Can I ask you something? I said, twirling pasta on my fork. Of course. Why did you really offer this arrangement? And don't say it's about security or guilt. There's more to it. He was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. I've lived alone for a long time. Moved around a lot for work. Never stayed anywhere long enough to build real connections. This apartment, this city, I decided I wanted to actually settle somewhere. Build something more than just a temporary home base. And having you here, having someone to share space with, to talk to, it makes this place feel less empty. Less like just another stop on the endless work circuit. So on your antidote to loneliness? You're my friend. At least I hope you are. Or you will be. If you can get past the whole apartment situation. I'm past it, mostly. Current arrangement is definitely an upgrade from the studio. I smiled. And yes, we're friends. Though Sarah is convinced there's more to it. What does Sarah think is going on? That we're living in a romance novel setup and should just admit we're attracted to each other and start making out. The words came out more boldly than I'd intended, probably helped by the wine. Nico's expression shifted surprise, then something that looked like heat before he controlled it. And what do you think? I think Sarah watches too many romantic comedies. We're roommates. Friends. That's all. Right. That's all. He stood, collecting our plates. I have some work to finish. Thanks for dinner conversation. He disappeared into his office, leaving me wondering if I'd just screwed up whatever comfortable dynamic we'd built. Because the truth was, Sarah wasn't entirely wrong. I was attracted to Nico. Had been since the first time I saw him, if I was being honest. But acting on that attraction would complicate everything, our living situation, our friendship. Our friendship would complicate on that attraction would complicate everything, our living situation, our living situation, our living situation, our friendship. The careful balance we'd established got better to keep things simple, professional, friendly, but boundaried. Except boundaries became harder to maintain when, 2 weeks later, I came home from a particularly brutal shift to find Nico pacing the living room. Phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian that sounded angry. He hung up when he saw me. His expression darker than I'd ever seen it. Everything okay? Family business. Nothing you need to worry about. But his tone suggested he was very much worried. Nico, you're clearly upset. If you want to talk about it, I don't. but thank you.
He grabbed his keys. I need to go out. Don't wait up.
He left, and I tried not to feel hurt by the abrupt dismissal. We were roommates, not partners. He didn't owe me explanations about his personal life, but when he still wasn't home at 2 a.m., I started worrying. And when he finally walked in at 3:30 a.m., I was awake on the couch, unable to sleep from concern.
You waited up, he said, sounding surprised.
I was worried. You left upset and then you were gone for hours, and I didn't know if something happened. I stopped when I saw his hands. Bruised knuckles, dried blood on one sleeve.
Nico, what happened?
Are you hurt?
I'm fine.
Just a business situation that got physical. It's handled. You're bleeding. That's not fine. Let me look at your hands.
Mia, I'm a nurse.
Literally trained for this. Sit down and let me check if you need stitches or if anything's broken. He sat, and I examined his hands carefully. The knuckles were bruised and split but not seriously damaged. No broken bones, nothing requiring stitches. I cleaned the wounds with antiseptic, applied bandages, working with professional efficiency while my mind raced with questions. What kind of business meeting ends with you bloodied and bruised? I asked as I wrapped his right hand. The kind I don't want you involved in. Mia, my work, it's not always clean. Not always legal. And the less you know about it, the safer you are. Are you in danger? Should I be worried about people coming here? You're safe. This apartment, this building completely separate from business. I keep my personal life and work life completely separate. That's non-negotiable. But you're not safe. Whatever you were doing tonight put you in a situation where you got hurt. Nico, that's not normal business operations. That's my world. And it's not something you need to worry about. I appreciate your concern, but I can handle my own problems.
He stood, clearly ending the conversation.
Thank you for patching me up. I'm going to shower and sleep.
You should too.
After he left, I sat on the couch processing what had happened. The blood, the bruises, the angry phone call. The admission that his work wasn't always legal, it all pointed to something I'd been trying not to see.
Nico wasn't just a businessman with security.
He was involved in something dangerous. Possibly criminal. I should have been terrified. Should have started looking for a new apartment immediately. But instead, I just felt worried about him. About whatever situation had put him in danger. About whether he'd be safe the next time business got physical. The next morning, Nico was gone before I woke up. He left a note. Thank you for last night. I'm sorry I worried you. Taking care of some business for a few days. We'll be back by Friday. And 3 days. He'd be gone for 3 days, taking care of business that had already gotten him hurt. I tried not to think about what might happen during those 3 days. Sarah noticed my distraction during our shift. You're worried about him. Your mysterious roommate. He came home hurt. Bruised hands. Blood on his clothes. Said it was a business situation that got physical. Sarah, what if he's in actual danger? Then, maybe it's time to have a serious conversation about what exactly his business involves. Because girl, if you're catching feelings for someone in a dangerous situation, you need to know what you're getting into.
She was right.
But having that conversation required Nico to actually tell me the truth, which seemed unlikely given how carefully he avoided discussing his work. When Nico returned on Friday, he looked exhausted but unharmed. I was in the kitchen making dinner when he walked in, dropping his bag by the door. Hey, you're okay? I'm okay. Situation is resolved.
How was your week?
Busy. Covered 2 extra shifts. Made enough dinner for both of us if you're hungry.
Starving.
Give me 10 minutes to shower and I'll join you. Over dinner, we fell back into our usual easy conversation, talking about everything except the elephant in the room. His work, his injuries, whatever dangerous situation he'd spent 3 days resolving.
He clearly didn't want to discuss it.
And I didn't want to push and ruin the comfortable dynamic we'd reestablished. But later that night, after a few glasses of wine, Nico finally brought it up. I know you have questions. About what I do, About the other night. About why I come home bloody sometimes.
You deserve answers, especially since you're living here. Only if you want to tell me.
I'm not going to demand information you're not comfortable sharing.
My family is involved in organized crime. Have been for generations.
Import-export is real. We run legitimate shipping operations. But we also handle other things. Territory disputes, enforcement, protection services. I'm second in command under my uncle, being groomed to eventually take over operations.
The admission hung in the air. My roommate, the man I'd been living with, sharing meals with, developing feelings for, was in the Mafia.
So when you said business got physical ...
I mean exactly that.
Someone challenged our territory. I had to remind them why that was a mistake. It's ugly, it's violent, and it's part of my world.
His dark eyes held mine. I understand if this changes things.
If you want to move out, find a different situation.
I'll help you relocate. Make sure you're set up somewhere safe and comfortable.
No hard feelings. You're giving me an out.
I'm giving you a choice.
Stay and accept what I am, or leave and protect yourself from my world. Either way, I'll respect your decision.
I should have chosen to leave.
Should have packed my things and found a new apartment far from Nico Valentini and his dangerous life.
But I thought about the past 2 months, the easy companionship, the comfortable domesticity, the way he made me laugh and feel less alone in a city that could be isolating.
And I thought about how, despite his criminal activities, he'd been nothing but kind and respectful to me.
I'm staying, I heard myself say. But I need honesty, Nico. No more hiding when you're hurt or in danger. If we're doing this, living together, being friends, whatever this is, I need to know when things are bad. Can you give me that? I can try.
Though sometimes not knowing is safer.
Let me decide what level of risk I'm comfortable with. Deal? Deal. He reached across the table, took my hand. Thank you.
For not running. For giving me a chance despite what I am. Thank you for being honest, finally.
We sat there, hands linked across the table.
And I knew that whatever this was between us, it had just become infinitely more complicated. After Nico's confession, our dynamic shifted. Not dramatically, we still shared meals, still talked for hours, still existed in comfortable domesticity. But now there was an undercurrent of awareness. Of acknowledgement that we were both attracted to each other, and carefully not acting on it.
You're playing a dangerous game, Sarah warned during one of our lunch breaks.
Living with a hot mafia guy you're clearly into, pretending you're just roommates.
That's a romance novel waiting to happen.
We're actually just roommates.
Nothing's happened.
Yet, nothing's happened yet. But girl, the tension you're describing?
That's not sustainable.
Something's going to break. She was right, though I didn't want to admit it. The awareness between Nico and me was becoming harder to ignore. The way his hand would brush mine when we were cooking together.
How he'd look at me sometimes, dark eyes intense with something that made my breath catch.
The nights we'd end up on the couch watching movies, sitting progressively closer as the evening went on. 2 weeks after his confession,
Nico had to leave town for business again.
This time he warned me in advance. I'll be gone for about a week. Business in Chicago that requires personal attention.
Marco will be checking in on the apartment while I'm gone. He's my head of security, the one you met when I moved in.
If you need anything, call him. I can take care of myself. I've been living alone for years.
I know. But humor me.
You're under my protection now, whether you realize it or not. That means Marco checks in. Make sure you're safe.
It's not negotiable.
Under your protection.
Is that a Mafia thing?
It's a me thing. You matter to me, Mia. Your safety matters.
So Marco checks in. Understood? Understood.
Be careful in Chicago. Always am. He left early the next morning. I tried not to think about what business in Chicago entailed.
Whether he'd come back hurt again. Whether this was a dangerous trip or routine operations. He'd promised honesty.
But there were still things he didn't share details. He thought would worry me unnecessarily. Marco did indeed check in daily. Always professional but clearly taking his job seriously.
By day 3, I'd gotten used to his 10 a.m. calls asking if everything was okay. If I needed anything, if there had been any unusual activity around the apartment. On day 5, everything changed.
I came home from my shift to find the apartment door slightly ajar.
I knew I'd locked it that morning. I always locked it, especially when Nico was out of town. Heart pounding. I pulled out my phone to call Marco.
But before I could dial, someone grabbed me from behind. A hand clamped over my mouth,
An arm around my waist, pulling me into the apartment. I fought, using every self-defense move I'd ever learned. But my attacker was strong.
male significantly larger than me, clearly experienced in subduing people.
"Stop fighting," a voice said in my ear, accent heavy.
"We're not here to hurt you.
"Just need you to cooperate." There were 2 of them in the apartment, the one holding me, and another searching through Nico's office.
They were looking for something.
Clearly professionals, moving with practiced efficiency.
Where is he?
The one holding me asked. "Valentini."
Where did he go?
"I don't know.
He doesn't tell me his schedule.
You're lying. You live together, you're close. He tells you things. Now tell us where he is before this gets unpleasant." "I really don't know. Chicago, maybe?" He said he had business there, but he didn't give specifics.
The man searching the office called out something in a language I didn't recognize. They had a brief exchange. Then the one holding me dragged me toward Nico's office. "Open his safe. Now."
"I don't know the combination."
"He never told me."
"Figure it out.
Or we start breaking things. Starting with your fingers."
He wasn't bluffing. I could hear it in his voice, cold, professional.
Someone who'd hurt people before and wouldn't hesitate to do it again. My hands were shaking as I approached the safe, trying to think of what combination Nico might use. His birthday?
No, too obvious. Some important date in his family history?
I had no idea what that would be. Random numbers? I'd never figure it out.
"I really don't know the combination," I said, voice steadier than I felt.
"I'm just his roommate."
"He doesn't share security information with me." "Roommate." The man laughed.
"Valentini doesn't do roommates. You're something to him, girlfriend, lover, whatever.
"Which means you know things."
So, start talking or start bleeding."
Before he could follow through on the threat,
I heard the front door crash open.
Marco's voice, shouting in Italian, followed by gunfire. The man holding me shoved me toward the safe, drew his own weapon,
and returned fire. I dropped to the floor, covering my head, trying to make myself as small as possible.
More shouting, more gunfire, chaos erupting around me. Then sudden silence. "Mia." Marco's voice.
"Where are you?"
"Office. I'm okay."
He appeared in the doorway, gun still drawn, 2 other men with him.
"You hurt?"
No, scared, but not hurt. They wanted me to open Nico's safe, wanted to know where he was.
"Did you tell them anything?" "Just that he was in Chicago."
That's all I knew. Marco made several phone calls in rapid Italian, then turned his attention back to me.
"Pack a bag. You're coming with us.
This apartment isn't safe anymore, they found it, which means others can too."
"Where are we going?" "Safe house. Until we figure out who sent them and neutralize the threat."
"Move quickly, we need to be gone in 5 minutes." I threw essentials into a bag with shaking hands, trying not to think about what had almost happened.
The men who'd broken in were gone. Marco's team had removed them,
though I wasn't sure if they were dead or just unconscious, and I wasn't going to ask. The safe house was an apartment in Manhattan, modern and secure, clearly designed for exactly this kind of situation. Marco stationed guards outside, made more phone calls, and then sat me down with a serious expression.
"I've contacted Nico. He's flying back tonight. In the meantime, you stay here.
Don't leave for any reason. Don't contact anyone outside, no calls to friends or family that might compromise your location."
"Understood?" "Understood." "Marco, who were those men? What did they want?" "Information about Nico's operations."
"Your leverage take you. Force him to cooperate. It's a common tactic in our world." His expression softened slightly. "You handled it well. Didn't panic. Didn't give them information that could have gotten people killed. That probably saved your life.
Nico arrived at 2 a.m., looking furious and terrified in equal measure. He burst through the door, crossed the room in 3 strides, and pulled me into his arms. Are you okay? Did they hurt you?
I'm fine. Scared, but fine. Marco got there in time.
He held me for a long moment, and I could feel the tension in his body. Fear, relief all mixed together. When he finally pulled back, his dark eyes were intense.
This is my fault. I brought you into my world, put you in danger. Those men came for you because of me. They came because of your work, not because of me. There's a difference.
A distinction that doesn't matter when you're the one being threatened. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling with emotion. Mia, I think you should leave.
Move out, find somewhere far from me and my family. Somewhere safe. You're giving me an out again.
I'm trying to protect you.
Today proved that living with me makes you a target. I won't put you in that position again. What if I don't want to leave? What if I'd rather deal with occasional danger than lose what we have?
What we have isn't worth your life.
That's not your decision to make.
It's mine.
And I'm choosing to stay. Why?
Why would you choose to stay in a situation that nearly got you killed today?
Because I stopped. The words I was about to say hanging unspoken between us. Because I love you.
Because somewhere in the past 3 months, you've become the most important person in my life. Because the thought of leaving you is worse than the fear of staying.
Because what? His voice was softer now, intense.
Because this matters.
We matter. Whatever this is between us, it's worth fighting for. Worth the risk. Mia, don't. Don't tell me I'm being naive or stupid or that I don't understand the danger.
I was there today.
I know exactly what your world looks like. And I'm still choosing to stay.
So unless you're the one who wants me to leave, unless you don't want me here anymore, I'm staying. Of course I want you here.
I've wanted you since the day you confronted me in the hallway about taking your apartment. But wanting you and keeping you safe are 2 different things.
Then keep me safe.
Use all that security and protection you're so good at. But don't push me away because you're scared.
We're past that now. He studied my face, clearly warring with himself.
Then he cupped my cheek, thumb brushing my skin.
If you stay, things change. I can't keep pretending we're just roommates when every day I want more. Can't keep that distance when you've just been threatened because of me.
If you stay, you need to know what you're agreeing to.
I know what I'm agreeing to.
Do you? Instead of answering, he kissed me. It was gentle at first, questioning, giving me a chance to pull away. When I kissed him back with all the pent-up wanting from months of careful distance, it deepened. Became urgent, hungry, months of tension finally breaking. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nico rested his forehead against mine. No going back from this. You understand that? You're mine now. Under my protection, in my life, part of my world. There's no casual with me, Mia. I don't do halfway. Good. Because I don't want casual. I want this. Us. All of it. Even the dangerous parts?
Even when my work intrudes and puts you at risk?
Even then. We'll figure it out together. He kissed me again. And this time there was promise in it. Promise of more, of a future, of choosing each other despite impossible circumstances. We spent the next 3 days at the safe house while
Marco and Nico's security team dealt with the threat.
Nico explained that the men who'd broken in were from a rival family trying to gain leverage for territory negotiations. His team had tracked them down, handled the situation in a way I didn't ask for details about, and sent a message that attempting to use me as leverage again would be fatal. So I'm safe now? We can go home. You're as safe as anyone can be in my world. Which means protected, guarded, but never entirely without risk. I won't lie to you about that.
I appreciate the honesty, even when it's scary.
When we finally returned to the apartment, everything looked normal.
Marco's team had cleaned up all evidence of the break-in, repaired the door, and installed additional security measures.
But despite the physical normalization, Everything had changed between Nico and me. We weren't just roommates anymore. We were together officially, undeniably together. And while that came with complications and dangers I was still processing, it also felt right in a way nothing else in my life had. "So," Sarah said when I finally told her what had happened. "You're dating a mafia boss." "That's definitely not boring. I'm dating a man who happens to be in organized crime." "There's a difference." "Is there though?" "Girl, you were held at gunpoint because of his work. That's pretty directly connected to his criminal activities." "I know. But Sarah, when he thought I was in danger, when he came back and thought he might lose me, I saw how much I matter to him." "How much he cares. That's worth navigating the complications. As long as you're going into this with eyes open. No pretending it's going to be simple or safe." "My eyes are wide open. And I'm still choosing him." That has to mean something. It meant everything. And as Nico and I settled into our new dynamic partners in every sense, navigating his dangerous world together, I knew I'd made the right choice. Complicated, risky, occasionally terrifying choice. But mine. And I wouldn't change it for anything. 6 months into our relationship, I'd adapted to being the girlfriend of a mafia boss in ways I never imagined possible. I learned to read Nico's moods, to know when work stress was dangerous versus just frustrating. I learned which questions to ask and which to leave alone. And I learned that loving someone in his world meant accepting that some nights he'd come home late, bloodied, and unable to talk about what happened. "You're handling this better than I expected," Nico said one evening. We were cooking dinner together, one of our favorite routines, working side by side in comfortable synchronization. Most people couldn't adapt to my life the way you have. Most people probably have more sense than to try. But I'm stubborn, and I love you, so here we are. It was the first time I'd said it directly. We danced around the words for months, showing it through actions, but never quite saying it out loud. Nico stopped chopping vegetables, turned to face me. "Say that again." "I'm stubborn?" "The other part. I love you. Have for a while now. Probably since before the break-in. Just took me time to admit it." He crossed the kitchen, pulled me into his arms. "I love you too. Have loved you since you yelled at me in the hallway about stealing your apartment. You were so furious, so passionate about standing your ground. I was captivated. You loved me while I was yelling at you?" "That's twisted." "That's accurate. I like your fire, your strength. You don't back down, even when you're scared. That's rare in my world." We kissed, and dinner was forgotten for a while as we got lost in each other. Later, wrapped up together on the couch, Nico brought up something he'd clearly been thinking about. "I want you to meet my family, officially, not as my roommate or friend, but as my partner. The woman I'm planning a future with." That sounds serious. And slightly terrifying. It is both those things. My family is got complicated. Traditional in some ways, very modern in others. They'll have opinions about you, about us. But I need them to know you're important to me. That you're under family protection, not just my personal protection. What's the difference? Personal protection means I'm responsible for keeping you safe. Family protection means the entire organization is responsible. Anyone who threatens you threatens all of us. It's a much stronger deterrent. So meeting your family is basically a business decision. It's a declaration that you're mine, permanently, and harming you means war. But it's also personal. I want them to know the woman who's made me happier than I've been in years. The family dinner was scheduled for 2 weeks later, giving me time to be appropriately nervous. Nico coached me on family dynamics, who to defer to, which relatives were friendly versus suspicious of outsiders. "Your mother, what's she like?" "Protective, traditional. She judged you on whether you're good enough for her son, whether you understand our world, whether you'll fit into the family. Just be yourself. Your strength and authenticity will win her over. You have a lot of faith in my ability to charm a mafia matriarch. I have faith in you, period." The dinner was held at his uncle's estate, a massive property in upstate New York that screamed old money and careful security. There were at least 30 people present, all of them clearly family.
all of them assessing me with varying degrees of curiosity and suspicion. Nico's mother, Sophia, was an elegant woman in her 60s who studied me with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "So you're the nurse who's captured my son's attention. He's talked about you extensively."
Though he failed to mention how young you are.
"I'm 29, Mrs. Valentini, young but not that young. Please call me Sophia. And forgive my bluntness. In our family, we value directness. Tell me, how did you react when you learned what Nico does for a living?" "Honestly,
I was shocked, scared, seriously considered moving out immediately. But I'd already fallen for him by then, so I decided the relationship was worth navigating the complications.
even though his work puts you in danger?" "Even though. I'd rather face occasional danger with him than be completely safe without him." Sophia smiled, something warming in her expression. "Good answer. Naive, perhaps, but heartfelt.
My son deserves someone who chooses him consciously, knowing all the risks. You seem to have done that."
Dinner was an elaborate affair with multiple courses and wine flowing freely. I sat beside Nico, his hand frequently finding mine under the table, a silent reassurance that I was doing fine.
That he was there. His uncle, Lorenzo, was the head of the family. He studied me throughout dinner, asking pointed questions about my background, my family, my thoughts on loyalty and discretion.
"Nico tells me you were held at gunpoint by the Russo family 6 months ago."
That must have been traumatic.
"It was terrifying.
But Marco got there in time, and the situation was handled.
I'm grateful for the protection your family provides. Protection comes with expectations.
Loyalty, discretion, understanding that family business stays within the family."
Can you commit to that?" "I can."
I love Nico, which means I'm committed to protecting him and his family. That includes keeping confidences and respecting boundaries around business operations.
Even if you morally disagree with those operations? I'm not going to pretend I'm comfortable with everything that happens in your world.
But I understand that Nico is trying to transition toward more legitimate operations. I support that goal while accepting that change takes time.
Lorenzo nodded slowly. "You're honest. I appreciate that. Many people in your position would lie. Tell me what they think I want to hear. You're telling me the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. That takes courage." After dinner, the women gathered in one room while the men had what was clearly a business discussion in another. Nico's sister, Isabella, immediately cornered me.
"So, you and my brother."
"That's serious. Very serious. We're living together, planning a future.
This is long-term for both of us."
"Good. He needs someone like you, grounded, strong, not afraid of him. Too many women are either terrified of what he does or attracted to the danger."
You seem to see the actual person underneath.
"I do. He's more than his position in the family. More than his work.
And I love all of him, not just the parts that are convenient."
That's exactly what he needs to hear." She lowered her voice. "Fair warning, some of the family will never fully accept you.
You're an outsider, not born into this world.
They'll always see you as a potential liability. Don't let it get to you. Nico's opinion is what matters, and he clearly adores you."
The evening ended with Lorenzo pulling Nico and me aside for a private conversation.
"I'm giving my blessing to this relationship. Mia is under full family protection as of tonight. Anyone who harms her answers directly to me. Nico, you've chosen well. Don't screw this up." In the car heading home, I exhaled tension I hadn't realized I'd been holding. That was intense. "Your family is intimidating. You handled them perfectly. My mother loves you, I could tell.
Lorenzo respects you, which is rarer and more important. Isabella already considers you a sister. You passed every test they threw at you." "There were tests?"
"I thought we were just having dinner. Everything is a test in my family. But you aced them without even trying.
Just by being yourself."
2 months after the family dinner, Nico proposed.
It wasn't elaborate or public, just the two of us in our apartment, after a quiet dinner.
He pulled out a ring and said simply, "Marry me.
Make this official. Be my wife, my partner, my everything."
Yes,
Absolutely yes.
The ring was beautiful vintage style with a center diamond surrounded by smaller stones. It was my grandmother's, he explained. She told me to give it to someone worthy. You're worthy, Mia. Of this ring, of me, of everything I can give you.
We set a date for 6 months later, giving us time to plan a wedding that would satisfy his family's expectations while still feeling authentic to us. And during those months of planning, I finally understood what it meant to truly be part of Nico's world. There were dress fittings with his mother and sister, meetings with family members to discuss guest lists and seating arrangements,
Careful navigation of family politics around who got invited, who was honored, who might be offended by not being included. Is every wedding this complicated in your family?
I asked after a particularly tense planning session where two cousins argued about whether their parents should sit at the head table.
Every major family event is this complicated. Weddings, funerals, christenings, they're all political minefields.
But this is also about celebration.
About bringing together everyone we love to witness our commitment.
Try to focus on that part rather than the drama. I'm trying, but I'm also seriously considering eloping.
Don't even think about it. My mother would never forgive us.
And honestly, I want the big wedding.
Want everyone to see how beautiful you are. How proud I am that you chose me.
Let them have their drama, we'll have each other. 3 weeks before the wedding, everything nearly fell apart. A territory dispute with a rival family escalated into violence. 3 of Nico's men were injured, 1 seriously. And Nico himself came home at 4 a.m., with a bullet graze on his arm and blood soaking his shirt. I patched him up with shaking hands. Professional nursing training warring with personal terror.
You could have died.
3 weeks before our wedding, you could have died. But I didn't. I'm here. I'm fine. Nia, this is my world.
Sometimes violence happens.
We've talked about this. Talking about it and experiencing it are different things. Seeing you walk and bleeding, knowing you were in a gunfight, that's not something I can just accept and move on from.
What are you saying?
That you can't do this. Can't marry me? I'm saying I'm terrified.
I'm saying I don't know how to live with constant worry that you won't come home.
I'm saying I need you to help me figure out how to handle this because right now I'm barely holding it together.
He pulled me close, ignoring his injured arm.
Then we figure it out together. I'll be more careful, take fewer personal risks. I'll make sure you always know when I'm in a dangerous situation so you're not blindsided. We'll find a way to make this work, because the alternative losing you isn't acceptable. Promise me you'll try to be safer. That you'll transition toward legitimate business operations like you've been planning.
I need to know there's an end goal where you're not constantly in danger.
I promise.
I'm already working on it. Within 3 years, I'll be completely out of enforcement.
Just management of legitimate operations. I'm doing this for us, for the future we're building. You have my word. The wedding day was beautiful. We married in a small church that had been in his family for generations, surrounded by everyone we loved. I wore a dress his mother had helped me choose. Walked down the aisle to his sister playing violin. And said my vows with absolute certainty.
I promise to love you through danger and safety, through complications and joy.
I promise to be your partner, your equal, your home. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of our lives. Nico's vows were equally emotional. I promise to protect you, honor you, and love you with everything I am. I promise to build a life worthy of your faith in me. I promise to be the man you see when you look at me, not the criminal, not the boss, but the person who loves you more than anything in this world. When we kissed as husband and wife, the church erupted in applause. And as we walked back down the aisle together, I felt absolutely certain I'd made the right choice. Complicated, dangerous, occasionally terrifying choice. But mine. And I wouldn't change it for anything. 3 years after our wedding, Nico kept his promise. He transitioned completely out of enforcement and violent operations, focusing entirely on the family's legitimate businesses. It wasn't a smooth transition. Some family members thought he was going soft, abandoning tradition. But Lorenzo supported the decision,
recognizing that times were changing and adaptation was necessary for long-term survival. How does it feel?
I asked one evening. We were in our apartment, the combined space that had started as a strange roommate arrangement and become our home.
Being fully legitimate?
Strange. Freeing. I don't miss the violence, but I do miss the adrenaline sometimes. The sense of being in control of dangerous situations.
He pulled me close.
But this is better. Coming home to you without blood on my hands. Building something that won't land me in prison or get me killed. This is what I want our future to look like. Our future. Speaking of which, I have news. Good news or bad news?
Depends on your perspective.
I'm pregnant. For a moment, Nico just stared at me.
Then his face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen.
You're pregnant. We're having a baby. We're having a baby.
Surprise?
He kissed me, then pulled back, hands on my stomach even though there was nothing to feel yet.
This is the best news.
The absolute best news. When did you find out?
This morning.
I've been trying to figure out how to tell you all day. Wasn't sure if you were ready for this.
I've been ready since the day we got married.
Mia, this is everything.
A family with you.
A life that's stable and safe enough to bring children into. This is what I've been working toward. Our daughter Sophia was born 7 months later.
Nico was present for the birth, holding my hand through contractions, crying when he first held our daughter.
Watching him with Sophia so gentle and protective and completely in love made me fall for him all over again. She's perfect, he said, studying her tiny features.
She has your nose.
She has your dark hair. And probably your stubborn streak. God help us if she inherited both our stubborn streaks. We'll never win an argument. Parenthood transformed us both. Nico became even more committed to legitimate business operations, wanting Sophia to grow up proud of her father rather than afraid of him. I reduced my hospital hours, finding a better balance between career and family. And together, we built a life that felt stable, happy. Surprisingly normal given how it had started. 2 years after Sophia, we had a son, Marco. Named after the security chief who'd saved my life during the break-in years ago. Marco the security chief was honored, though he pretended to be gruff about it. You're naming a baby after me?
That's sentimental.
You saved Mia's life. That seems worth commemorating, Nico said. Fine, but the kid better be tough. Can't have a Marco who's soft.
5 years after our wedding, we hosted a family dinner in our apartment.
It had become tradition, once a month. The whole family gathered for food and chaos, and the kind of loud, argumentative love that Italian families specialized in. Look at you, Isabella said, watching Nico chase Sophia around the living room while baby Marco napped on my shoulder.
Domestic and happy. Who would have predicted this?
Certainly not me when I first met him.
I thought he was an arrogant criminal who'd stolen my apartment. And now?
Now he's my arrogant criminal who I happen to love desperately. Life is weird. Life is good. You two are good. And these kids, they're lucky to have parents who love each other this much. That evening, after everyone had left and the kids were asleep, Nico and I ended up on the couch, our spot, where so many important conversations had happened over the years. Do you ever regret it? He asked, staying that first time after I moved in? Choosing this life instead of finding something simpler? Not once. This life, you, our kids, this family, it's better than anything simple could have been. Do you regret forcing me into that tiny studio apartment? I didn't force, okay, the landlord forced, but I benefited. And no, I don't regret it. Because it brought you into my life. Made you my roommate, then my friend, then my everything.
You're everything.
I like that. It's accurate. You're my wife, my partner, the mother of my children, my best friend. You're everything that matters, Mia. Everything I didn't know I needed until you showed up angry at my door, demanding to know why I was taking your apartment. Best worst day of my life. Finding out I was losing my apartment but gaining you. 10 years after we met. I was folding laundry in our bedroom when I found an old photo, one of the first pictures we'd taken together.
Back when we were just roommates pretending there wasn't attraction simmering between us. We looked young, uncertain, not yet understanding what we were building. Found this in a box, I told Nico, showing him the photo.
Remember when this was taken?
Isabella took that at a family dinner.
Maybe 4 months after I moved in.
You were still pretending you were just tolerating me as a roommate.
I was not pretending, okay? I was totally pretending. I was already half in love with you and trying to convince myself it was just physical attraction.
Meanwhile, I was fully in love with you and trying to respect boundaries by not acting on it.
We were both idiots. Happy idiots now, though. The happiest.
Sophia ran in, now 7 years old and full of questions.
Mom, Dad, Marco won't share the remote, and I want to watch my show.
Marco is 4. You're 7.
Be the bigger person and find a compromise, I said automatically. That's not fair. Life rarely is.
Go negotiate with your brother.
Use your words.
After she left, Nico laughed. She definitely inherited our stubborn streaks.
That kid is going to be trouble.
She's your daughter. Of course she's going to be trouble.
But she's also smart and kind and everything good about both of us. Just like her mother.
15 years after our wedding, Sophia was now a teenager who'd figured out her father's past and had questions. We'd known this conversation was coming, had prepared for it as best we could.
But actually sitting down with our daughter to explain that her father used to be involved in organized crime, that was harder than anticipated.
So you were in the Mafia, Sophia said bluntly.
Like actually in it. Not just adjacent or whatever.
I was.
For most of my adult life before I met your mother.
But when you were born, I'd already transitioned to legitimate business.
You've never known that version of me. But it's still part of who you are. Your family is still connected to that world.
Some parts of the family, yes.
But Sophia, I need you to understand. I made choices to ensure you'd grow up safe. That you'd never be pulled into that life. Everything I've done since meeting your mother has been about building something better for our family. Mom knew about all of this when she married you. She found out early on. Had the choice to leave.
She chose to stay. Sophia turned to me. Why?
Why would you stay with someone involved in that?
Because I loved him. Because I saw who he was beyond his past.
Because he was actively working to change, to be better. And because the life we've built together, this family has been worth every complication. But wasn't it scary? Knowing he could get hurt or arrested. Terrifying sometimes. But Sophia, every relationship involves risk. Your father's risks were just more obvious than most people's. I decided he was worth it. And 15 years later, I still think I made the right choice.
Sophia processed this, clearly struggling with the revelation.
I need time to think about this.
It's a lot. Take all the time you need.
And Sophia? You can ask us anything. We'll always be honest with you. After she left, Nico looked shaken. She hates me. She's going to hate me for my past.
She doesn't hate you. She's processing. She worked through it and come to the same conclusion I did, that your past doesn't define you.
Your choices now, the father you are, the life you've built. That's what defines you.
Sophia did work through it.
It took a few weeks of distance and long conversations, but eventually she came around.
I get it.
You're not that person anymore. And honestly, the stories Grandma tells about you as a kid? You were kind of a troublemaker even before the crime family stuff. It's kind of on brand. 20 years after I'd knocked on apartment 4B's door to confront a stranger about stealing my apartment,
Nico and I celebrated our anniversary.
Sophia was away at college, Marco was in high school, and we had the apartment to ourselves for a rare quiet evening.
20 years, Nico said, pouring wine. Since you showed up at my door looking furious and beautiful, demanding to know why I was moving into your apartment.
I was so angry. Thought you were the most arrogant person I'd ever met.
I was arrogant. Still am, probably. But you've softened me. Made me better.
You've made me better too. Braver, more willing to take risks, more understanding of moral complexity. We've been good for each other. The best for each other.
He raised his glass.
To 20 more years. And 20 after that. And as many years as we get, because I'm never letting you go. To us. To the life we've built from the strangest beginning. To finding love in the most unexpected place when a stranger showed up at my door claiming he was my new roommate. We drank to that. To us, to 20 years of choosing each other through complications and joy and everything in between. That night, wrapped up together in bed, I thought about how far we'd come. From antagonistic neighbors to reluctant roommates, to friends to lovers, to spouses to parents. Every step of the journey had been unexpected, often complicated, sometimes dangerous. But always worth it. I love you, I said into the darkness. Thank you for moving into my apartment and ruining my life in the best possible way. Nico pulled me closer. Thank you for staying. For choosing me despite every reason to run. For building this beautiful life with me. Wouldn't change a single thing. Even the cramped studio apartment and the break-in and all the scary parts. Because it all led here. Here is pretty perfect. Here is everything. We fell asleep like that, tangled together, 20 years of history between us and hopefully many more years ahead. Two people who'd met as strangers forcing an impossible roommate situation and had turned it into the great love story of our lives. It wasn't the story I'd expected when I'd rented apartment 4C, but it was better than anything I could have imagined. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Epilogue. 25 years later, Sophia brought her fiancé to meet us. Nervous in a way that reminded me of myself 25 years ago when I'd met Nico's family. Mom. Dad, this is Alex. Alex, these are my parents. Alex shook our hands, clearly trying to hide nerves. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Valentini. Sophia's told me so much about you. Call me Nico. And ignore whatever Sophia told you. She's dramatic and probably made us sound more intimidating than we are. Dad was literally in the Mafia. I think intimidating is understated, Sophia said dryly. Was. Past tense. Now I'm just a businessman with a suspicious past. Much less intimidating. Nico smiled. Alex, relax. We're not going to interrogate you. Much. Over dinner, watching Sophia with her fiancé, I saw echoes of Nico and me 25 years ago. The way they looked at each other. The easy affection. The sense that they'd found something real and worth building on. They remind me of us, Nico said later, after Sophia and Alex had left. Young in love, ready to build a life together. Let's hope their beginning is less complicated than ours. No roommate drama or criminal revelations. But our complicated beginning made us stronger. All the reasons we shouldn't have worked. They made us fight for it. Made us certain we were choosing each other for the right reasons. True. But still, I hope they get a simpler start. 25 years since I confronted a stranger at my apartment door. 25 years of building a life that started from the strangest circumstances and became everything I'd never known I wanted. 25 years with the man who'd been my roommate, my friend, my partner, my husband, my everything, and I'd choose him again. Every single time. Because sometimes the best love stories start with the strangest beginnings. And sometimes the person who ruins your life in the beginning ends up being the person who makes it complete.